Welcome to Election Night Live. I'm Pat Kazakoff, and I'm coming to you live from West Hartford Community Interactive here at the studio at Town Hall in West Hartford, Connecticut. So joining me in studio for the Republican Party is Chris Williams. And as a brief introduction, Chris Williams is a lifelong resident of West Hartford. He's a lawyer with Conway and Stoughton and a former 3-term West Hartford Town Council member. Congrats. He's also the proud father of Lilia and Joey, and he says in his resume that he's lucky to be married to his wife, Holly. And I do recall the last time you and I were here, this was after your 3rd term, and you said that you're done with public service and you wanted to go back home and you wanted to be a dad and you wanted to coach youth sports. So tell me how that went.
It's been going really well. I've been coaching baseball, going to coach basketball. It's been great. So thanks for having me.
Well, so I want to tell you, that little comment about lucky to be married to your wife, Holly, that's very appealing to the female vote. So if you ever want to run again,
stick with it.
Stick with that one. So, and also we have representing the Democrats is John Lyons. And many of you might know John as the co-host of weha.com Roundtable. And he's also the meteorologist on Neighbors and Friends Facebook. And also, this is something I did not know about you, John, that you are the chairman of the 7th District Town Democratic Town Committee. So tell me, just as a civics lesson, how does one become the chairman of the Democratic Committee in the 7th District? How do you do that?
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of hard work goes into it. But politics, in terms of campaigning, hasn't really changed. It's knocking on doors, it's doing the mailers, making the phone calls, and just rolling up your sleeves, getting to work.
And so I guess you got to work.
I got to work. Still working.
So
worked a big chunk of today.
Okay, so welcome. And we are here. The polls opened at 6 a.m. and they closed at 8 p.m. So results will be coming in from West Hartford, but also this time from Newington and Bloomfield because of the redistricting, and Newington and Bloomfield are part of the new districts. We'll also be joined by Chris Prentice at Democratic headquarters and Graham Brown at Republican headquarters. So what makes this year interesting? It's a midterm election. People are running unopposed in the 15th, 18th, and 19th district, plus Derek Slapp in the 5th district running as state senator. And redistricting has caused a major shift. In the 15th district, which always included Windsor and Bloomfield, now it includes Bloomfield and West Hartford. And Bobby Gibson in the 15th district, the West Hartford that it includes is the streets of Sunny Reach and Portage, the Zach's campus where you have the Mandel JCC, the Hebrew Home, and the Community Services Building, plus Aldenwood, Northbrook. So that's really a new part of that area. So here you have, even with the uncontested areas, voting is still a major element of the democratic way. So why vote if all these areas are uncontested? It doesn't quite add up. So let's cut to Nils Sandstrom and Oliver Goldstein, who were at the polling stations today, and let's see why West Hartford residents are voting.
Hello, I'm Oliver Goldstein, and I'm here with the West Hartford Community Interactive, and we're asking people why voting matters. So why does voting matter to you?
Well, I think it represents what the actual people believe, and I think you should be voting in person unless you're in the military or extenuating circumstances, because one can observe whether you're being influenced or not.
To make a change, make a difference for the
for the country, for our state, but of course, and people shouldn't complain about what's going on and not vote. Everybody needs to vote. It's very, very important, and it's your right and it's your responsibility. So we're out here giving rides to seniors. So we're dropping them off all day, every hour.
So why does voting matter to you?
It's our lives. It's our democracy. If we want to live in a free society and make decisions that affect all of us in a orderly way, this is the way that we do it. This is democracy, and we have the best democracy in the world.
Especially this year, it's to protect our democracy.
Number one right we have as citizens, and we have to use it to vote our opinions.
My name is Fran Dunn, and I'm voting because if I'm going to have an opinion on how things are run in the state, then I should put my 2 cents worth in, as it were. And it is a civic duty, and it is a right, but it's also a privilege. So that's why.
Yeah, voting is so important because it's our chance to voice our opinions and our perspectives on what we think is right. And as I was telling my little guy here, it's important to vote for people who you think are going to do the right thing.
In a democracy, success depends on the participation of the citizenry. So to be a citizen, you need to vote. You need to vote thoughtfully.
Well, it's important to vote because we need to have good elected officials. I think we have a nice town with a good racial mix of people and great schools. And we want to keep it that way.
Voting matters to me because it gives people, including myself, a voice in our community, in our state, and in our country.
I've been working the polls for 25, 30 years now. I think it's important. We're one of the few countries that do have these rights. And we could be a banana republic where your vote doesn't count. Well, you could vote, but doesn't count. Yes, so yes, I think we're blessed.
It matters to every citizen in every district right now. We have so much going on in these elections, our communities, from reproductive rights to childhood education to even our basic voting rights are being trumped right now. And we just need everybody to come out today. I don't care who you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent. We need all you guys to come out and support your local candidates.
Well, it's our way to support whatever policies we believe in. It's the American way. It's the most important thing we can do as a citizen.
Voting is about using your voice, and it's about expressing your priorities and supporting them. And this is a form of action that everyone can participate in who is over 18 and who is registered to do so, in order to really think about and to express what is important to you. What are your priorities, what you support, what direction you want your community to go in, your state to go in, nationally, what you would like to see happen. So for me, it's your voice.
I think it's really important today because of protecting democracy. I think that's the most important thing, in my opinion, right now.
So, John, Chris, you saw what West Hartford feels about voting. What do you think?
Well, it's funny. I was actually, they did a clip with me.
Yes,
so
I did notice that.
And I was in good company. I was with Tammy, so I was lucky.
And you were also with Tammy, and also you were with Jeffrey Dressler, so another local celebrity.
Well, again, all politics is local, and really what you're doing, you're planting a garden, and you plant the garden, you water the seeds, and you hope the trees grow, and we're lucky. West Hartford has a great influence on state policy, and the state's done a good job of having influence on national policy.
What about you, Chris? What do you say?
I think some of the comments from the residents were spot on. Voting is a way of expressing yourself, and whether or not you agree with policies that are in place, and whether or not you want to take it a different direction. And I think the point was made and true that if you're going to complain, you should vote, because otherwise you're not going to change the way things are operating.
Well, you certainly had experience being on town council, so you know about complaining.
That's true. I know about complaining, or ideas. That was one of the great things. Some of the best ideas that come to the town council are actually the genesis is with the residents.
Yeah, so makes a difference. West Hartford counts. So it is a midterm election. There is a There's a gubernatorial election, both for Ned Lamont versus Bob Stefanowski, and United States Senator Dick Blumenthal versus Leora Levy, which I understand is heavily contested. But what are the issues that West Hartford cares about? And I know I'm putting you both on the spot, but I'm going to use the analogy of the stock market. You know, you have like the big gurus of the stock market, and the gurus say you should buy this and sell this and do that, and many times they're not exactly right. So without looking at our next clip, I want to ask you, what do you think, give me two things that you think are the issues for West Hartford.
Well, I think, going back to what I said about all politics is local, I think something that's really driving turnout, and turnout anecdotally today in West Hartford was huge. I think number one is abortion.
Abortion,
on
okay.
a lot of people's minds. And I think crime is on a lot of people's mind. And I could talk a lot about that. I don't want to eat into Chris's time.
So
you tell me
abortion
when.
and crime from,
Yep.
we're getting that from John Lyons. What about Chris?
So I think the issue that's impacting folks is the cost of living. And you see that in housing, you see that in inflation, fuel. We had Eversource raising some concerns about whether or not they might have to have shortages with respect to natural gas. And so I think cost of living, value of the dollar is on everyone's mind. And I do agree with John that I think crime is a big issue for folks, and a concern of how we address that moving
Okay,
forward.
so we have crime, and we have cost of living, and we have abortion, and we have crime. Okay, so let's see, let's get back to Oliver and Nild, and let's see what the folks in West Hartford have to say about the issues.
I'm Oliver Goldstein here with WHCI, and we're asking people what topics are they considering when voting this election.
Well, I think the economy is obviously a very important part of this whole thing, because the inflation actually hurts even the people who don't have incomes, and more to them than anybody else.
I think the topics people should be concerned about is like our education, our schools, what's being taught in our schools. I feel like that's very important.
We should be concerned with several topics. We should be concerned with our child's education. We have so much things going on with that. We have property taxes for new homeowners and existing homeowners, and we should be looking at different state legislatures.
Crime. I think Connecticutans should be concerned with crime and education. We need to take our cities back. We need to make crime go down by supporting our police officers and funding them.
Absolutely abortion, access to women's health.
Definitely abortion rights. I think, while we live in our safe little bubble in Connecticut, you never know. Things could change and people could have different opinions. And I think that abortion is a fundamental right for women to thrive and have a very important future.
I'm always concerned about the environment because we live in it and it supports us.
People always try to make it one thing, but if you look at today's country and even our town, it's inflation, crime, immigration, you name it. It's not just one thing, it's everything.
Well, like I said, I think it's, for me at least, it's really hard to support a party that supports insurrection. I just can't do it.
We need more affordable housing.
Climate change, number one for me. Also making sure we have a fair and equal society in terms of our education system, and making sure that all people are supported for who they are.
Right now, the election, the issues for our people right now is very important to make sure our country is going in the right direction. I really believe that our vote today is very important.
Probably the biggest one right now is the economy and the direction of the country that it's heading.
There's so many, but clearly I am here with a theme, so protecting and expanding reproductive freedom for all who need access to care.
All right.
So I guess our experts, we've proven our experts are really experts because you were 100% on 100%. So you talked about the cost of living and also crime.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. Cost of living is something that touches all people. Wherever you fall on the economic spectrum, you're going to feel an impact in on your wallet when you're in a situation like that. So that's why I thought that cost of living, economy, inflation would be on people's minds.
You were right. You were right. And also, I have to admit, I was quite surprised, John Lyons, when you said abortion. I said, well, that can't be a big topic, locally. But I was incorrect. I stand corrected. So, John Lyons, you got it on crime and you got it on abortion. What do you think?
Well, I try to pay attention. Again, being active, as we both are. I would hope we both have our fingers on the pulse. I think I get frustrated in the messaging. I think sometimes, and not locally. I think the messaging actually locally has been excellent, but I think nationally, and I know we're not supposed to talk too much about national, but I am frustrated with the messaging nationally. I think they missed a lot. The Democrats missed a lot of opportunities nationally.
Okay. Well. I'm just so impressed that my experts are real experts. So thank you both for that. And
so we're going to invest in the stock market tomorrow. What do you think?
We'll have a call after this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, well, call me because now I trust both of you. So one of the big things this year is the question on the ballot. And the question on the ballot is, shall the Constitution of the state be amended to permit the General Assembly to provide for early voting? That's the big question. Now, let's put this in context. There's only 4 states in the Union that don't have early voting, and that's Connecticut, New Hampshire, Mississippi, and Alabama. So the question is, why? Why don't we have early voting? Well, it's not in our Constitution. But the other question is, should we have early voting? And let's see how my experts do now. What do you think the people of West Hartford are going to say about early voting? Chris?
Well, I think they're going to say that they want early voting. I think early voting is probably an inevitability. The way I view early voting is I have a concern about it because, elections are a snapshot in time. And I think you have to be very careful with how much time you're going to allow the electorate to have to vote, because you may have a totally different environment. So for example, say you allow for a month of voting, and there's some event that happens in the middle of the month. If you think about a federal example, maybe there's a war, maybe there's an economic crash. So the voters would have different information upon which they are voting. So I think you have to be very careful about the length of time so there's a consistency in terms of the information that has been provided to voters. So I see this proposal and I view it with some caution. I think a tight time frame works. Obviously, people's schedules are much different now than they were 100 years ago. So I think it's inevitable, but I think we have to be very careful in terms of the time scope of it.
Well, so that's very interesting to me because I'm looking, you brought about national, which is not the focus of our topic today, but in Brazil, they have completely digitized elections, 1 day in and 1 day out, and it's done. What are you thinking about this question? You heard Chris is cautiously cautious. Cautiously cautious. What about John?
Well, first of all, I thought the way the question was phrased was very thoughtful on the ballot, where it made it very clear that this is something that will be put before the legislature and hopefully in a bipartisan manner. I have a little bit of inside information. I'm being involved, and Chris has been out of the game now for a year, I guess about a year. So I do know, to your point, there's a real focus on the amount of time, and my understanding is the initial conversations, it's nowhere near a month. So I think that's going to address that. I also know the legislature is going to really seek a lot of input from the communities and from the citizens. I support it. I agree with you. I don't think it should be a month. I think the cost of doing it a month ahead of time, the management of doing it a month ahead of time are very challenging. But I think that directionally they're looking at a much, much shorter.
But you think it's going to happen?
I do. I've seen a little bit of the results tonight. It says landslide. Yeah, it looks like a landslide.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now what Connecticut does is we get around the the early voting with the absentee ballot, where there are certain criteria that you can have. For example, if you're military, if you have COVID, if you're out of the country, and that allows you to use an absentee ballot. But it's still not early voting. You have to apply for it. It's a little cumbersome. People do, but it solves the problem a little bit. So let's once again, we're going to cut to Nild and to Oliver, and we're going to see what the folks in West Hartford think of this question.
I'm Oliver Goldstein here with West Hartford Community Interactive, and we're asking people, is early voting important to them?
We need to think about access, right? In Connecticut, as progressive as we are in so many ways, we're leaders in so many ways. When it comes to voting, we don't have the opportunity to do so in an early manner so that you have some flexibility around your timing and your scheduling.
I don't think there should be early voting. It's called election day, not election week, month, lawsuit. So it should be one day.
So anything that makes it more convenient and easier for people to vote makes sense to me.
I do think early voting is good. I'm not sure that we need to write it into the Constitution and open that window of allowing the Constitution to be edited for every modification that's needed.
People are busy and working, making sure that they have time and access to make their decision, and then, not feel rushed and then just give up and, trip over the finish line.
People disabled, or sometimes they can't get back to, or they have other things they have to do, or things come up, and I think it's a good idea to be able to vote early.
So it looks like people agree with you. I mean, they didn't bring up the month or the week but they agree that we should have early voting. But are there reasons for not early voting? Would there be a narrative for not having early voting?
I can't come up with one.
Okay.
But I'm not a voting expert by any means. Might be a better question for Essie LeBreau or the ROVs.
What about Chris? What are you thinking?
Well, I think the financial piece is an interesting one that John brought up, because the longer you have, the more staff you have to have, the more personnel you have to direct to facilitate early voting. I think the big one for me is that you want continuity of information to the electorate. That's a big one. But I think one of the benefits of early voting that is lost sometimes is that it encourages, I think, in-person voting, which I think is extremely important, because then there's more oversight on the process. There's more people who are observing someone, making sure they're not being unduly influenced and what have you. So that, it's like everything else. There's pros and cons, but like I said earlier, I think this is a strong inevitability.
Well, we talked a little bit before about the digital era. I brought up Brazil, but you would not. I mean, we are going digital. We are going, like the whole world is going digital. Would you think that voting should be going digital? By your answer, I would say you don't think so, that you have a reason for it not to be digital. But what are you thinking, John?
I think certainly in the short term, 10 years, I don't see that happening. I think I don't agree with the election deniers, but unfortunately there's a large population of election denialism in this country right now, and the bulk of them are convinced that these machines are hooked to the internet. They're not. It's been tried, I think, 60 times it's gone to court, and 60 times it's been, these cases have been turned down. So I think ultimately it would work, but I think trust is going to be a big issue, trust and acceptance.
Okay, well.
Yeah, do you want me to
No,
start?
yeah, sure.
So yeah, there's a difference between having an electronic way to vote in a voting center that's public and being on your home computer kind of scenario. So that's the first distinction. But I do think however we move forward, I do think that a way to address like what John just said about some of the population is to make sure we have proper oversight. And you know, I think as long as that's kept in mind, I think it will be moving forward. We should have good policies.
Yeah, so you're not thinking this digital, that it's going to go digital soon. You don't think it'll go digital, and even though we have Uber that went digital, and we have on you can bet at home,
Right.
you know, at home betting, but you
I don't agree with that either.
No,
That's,
but that's
that's a
another
different
story.
show.
I
That's
also,
a different show.
but I also
But
don't agree with
so,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you know, I know personally of instances where there were family members who wanted to look at each other's ballots, physical ballots, before mailing them in the last election. And to me, that subjects a citizen to potentially be intimidated. And so the idea that we're going to vote on a computer at home, to me, is, you know, I see that with real hesitation. That's very far from absentee voting, from physical voting, from an electronic device in a public voting center.
Can I,
Okay,
can
so-
I chime in with a quick example of something
absolutely.
I witnessed today? So I was over at Sedgwick, poll standing for a while at Sedgwick, and we were going in every so often and checking the voter count, which was very high, again, very robust turnout, and to the point that the machine got full of ballots. So they had to do a ballot swap where they take the ballots out and they put them in the secured black bag. And I mean, there were so many people from both sides supervising the process. It made me feel safe, even though I'm seeing ballots moving from in the middle of election day from the machine into the black secured lockable bag that then went into the locked cabinet. But I looked and I saw probably 4 people on each side supervising. It was going smoothly. They had to stop voting for a moment or two. The line queued up, but it went smoothly.
Well,
I felt good with that.
What I'm hearing here is that you both are really, really involved with the political process, and you trust the political process, and you trust the people of West Hartford, and that's what we're going to take a look and see now. We're going to go back to Nild and Oliver and see what the people of West Hartford think about this question. Well, the people of West Hartford are not speaking. They are not there.
Not
They
on this
are
issue.
not there. So, given that they are not there, and given that we are here, we're going to move on.
Okay.
Okay,
Super.
and let's get back to the local races. Okay, well, that's what we're all here for, and that's what you're here for. So let's talk about the 15th district. You have Bobby Gibson, who had Windsor and Bloomfield. He was the straight rep for that, and now he's Bloomfield and West Hartford. We have Jillian Gilchrist, 18th district, uncontested. We have the 19th district, Tammy Exum, uncontested. We have Derek Slapp, State Senate, uncontested. And we also have the 20th district with Anastasia Yop and Kate Farrar, who was the Democratic incumbent. Now, that's a place that was redistricted. And it was, the new district includes Newington and West Hartford. And Yop is on the board, was on the Board of Education in Newington. So, gentlemen, is this going to make a difference? Is it going to make a difference in the vote? Is the redistricting going to have an effect on this particular district?
Well, Kate's definitely got a race on her hands. There's no question. 40% of Newington, her district is about 40% Newington, about 60% West Hartford, in terms of the breakout of where
Well, 40 and 60,
where her
that's-
constituents are.
that's still-
And Yop is a very well-known entity in Newington, because that's where she came from. I think Yop objectively made a lot of missteps, some intentional, some probably unintentional. Right up to today, where there were stories of a little bit of tension at a couple of the polling places involving her, and I think, to me, it showed a distrust of the West Hartford electorate. And I think you need to, everybody may not agree with you, but you have to trust in the process, and you have to treat people as such. So I think Yop made a lot of missteps. I think
So let's talk about those
Yep.
missteps.
Okay.
You think they're missteps? What do you think?
Do you want me to give you specifics?
No,
I don't know
not
if
yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know the missteps he's referring to.
Oh, so maybe we should go back to the missteps.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, John, you're on. Missteps.
I think the biggest one, and I think it was a very big mistake, is she did a postcard a week ago where she had posed with a picture of the Chief Riddick at
police
an
chief.
event earlier this year. It was not a political event. It was Celebrate West Hartford. She did a mailing to the entire 20th district in West Hartford with the postcard, and it implied endorsement, and it was so strong that the chief had to put out a statement, and it resulted in, you know, the story. WEHA did a story on it. A lot of tension around that, and she tried to play it off as a rookie mistake, but this is not her first campaign. You know, it's pretty clear. I believe, and I'm not an expert in the Hatch Act, but I think the Hatch Act, you know, is touched on with this issue, and it was just, there were like missteps like that.
So now we have an example of a misstep that John is bringing up, and I know about that campaign. I did see the picture of Police Chief Reddick and Anastasia Yop. I did not see the implication at that moment. However, you bring it up, so it's valid. What are your thoughts?
I mean, look, campaigns, there's always a lot of controversy in campaigns. I myself actually haven't seen this particular mailer. I know from just speaking about her campaign generally, she clearly had a presence, a lot of lawn signs, a very aggressive campaign, I think, in a district that I don't think has been meaningfully challenged for a lot of years. So it'll be interesting to see if the lawn signs, the big support that she appears to have, converts to votes, and it becomes competitive.
Somebody made the comment today, we're going to find out if lawn signs work.
Right.
We're talking about Yop.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Okay. Anything else? Any other controversies? While we're talking, we may as well bring them up.
Yeah.
I mean, really, some of them ended up kind of staying in-house, so it's not really my place to bring them up. But today there were a couple of scenes at polling locations. Typically, so there was a woman in the video who was representing Yop, who was interviewed several times. She was wonderful. She was representing the Republican. I was representing the Democrat candidate. We were, a lot of cups of water here. We just had nice conversation, and that, to me, poll standing has always kind of been that. And with Anastasia, there was more tension of this, and I just, it's disappointing because I don't think there should be. I know we may disagree on issues. Chris and I may fundamentally disagree on issues, but you know.
So what do you?
We haven't put the boxing gloves on yet. We're halfway through.
So what do you think about the redistricting? Like, tell me about that. Redistricting. Does it in this situation, you talked about the 60-40 split, but does it make a difference?
So I think it makes a difference. There's an issue that I think is sort of an elephant in the room. Lack of Republican candidates. And, you know, someone who is a town councilor, have run for office, I think, you know, there's a bunch of different reasons for it. One of them, I think, is redistricting. To take a step back, anyone who runs for office, particularly, I think, a state rep, state senate position, it's going to be a big burden on your personal schedule. In today's political climate, there's probably concern that could hurt you professionally if you make a mistake, if you say something that is taken away you didn't intend. So there's a lot of obstacles and disincentives to running, and I do think that the redistricting is one of those elements. For me, West Hartford, and to John's reference earlier, it really is a powerful political municipality. There's a lot of state policy that's influenced by policy that is enacted here and people who live here. And I think personally that it's too bad that West Hartford doesn't have designated districts for the General Assembly.
So tell me, we're talking about redistricting, and I'm noticing like the redistricting, like Bobby Gibson's particular spot. I mean, it seems random to me. I can't understand. They got rid of Windsor, and they gave him Bloomfield and West Hartford. Like, what's that all about? Can you explain the redistricting to the public?
Do you want me to handle it? Or
yeah, sure. You go ahead.
Okay. I've had to answer this question a few times.
Yeah.
So, okay. So So effectively, it's really interesting because it starts with the census. So you did your census 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. You did your, hopefully we all did our census. And based on that, they redraw the congressional districts. And you can see when you go home and watch, Fox or CNN or MSNBC tonight, look at the results. They'll be talking about how districts are different now than they were 2 years ago, because the redistricting is not just germane to Connecticut or West Hartford, it's nationally. So in theory, a bipartisan committee comes together and redraws the map based on the census data. So what we're seeing with this redistricting is a function of the U.S. Census, which happens every 10 years. So my polling place changed. I used to go to Sedgwick, which I loved because it's a half a mile from my house, and I got to all the way up to Braeburn, okay? And the other sad news for me is I'm losing my vice chair because he got redistricted into the 6th. I'm in the 7th.
So it's not these redistricts are not random.
Not at all. Not at all.
So
a lot of thought goes
although
into
on the
them.
map, when you take a look at
It's
the
crazy.
map, it looks crazy.
Vargas has like 6 streets in town. So I got Vargas's results. He had like 143 turnout, and it was a huge turnout for him. So he literally has maybe 400 people in town who, if that, it's literally
So the
20 streets.
redistricting has some rhyme or reason,
It does.
and it's
But it
specifically
confuses-
done.
it
but
confuses all of us,
It
but-
confuses us,
Yeah.
but there is a rhyme or reason. As the
Correct.
population shifts, the redistricting happens.
Correct.
So maybe we can go back. I'm not so sure, but I do want to see that video of the question we asked before about the Constitution, about changing the early voting. So I'm not sure. Perhaps can we see that now? Is that available?
And Pat, if it doesn't work, we could spend the next few minutes toasting each other because we've got 6 cups.
I don't think so,
this-
but
no, okay,
no,
well,
it's
just
not
trying to kill
on.
time.
Yeah. So it's an idea. It's an idea.
Hey Pat, we already ran that video, so we're good.
We did.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I guess there's no more videos. we're done with the videos. We're all set. And
Let's cheers.
I guess it is a good idea. We're going to cheer each other. And thank you both for being here. Thank you, Chris. And once again, you might have a career again. Remember, the I Love Hollies
Yes,
story is a good one.
Chris, this Democrat would love to see you back in the game.
Oh, thanks. I
that's
appreciate
sincere.
that.
I always enjoy time with you, and always enjoy doing these.
There's
appreciate it. Thank
another
you, John.
vote of
Appreciate
confidence,
it.
and
Yep.
John, good luck with your
Thank you.
career.
Yeah,
You're
thank
now you've been the chairman of the Democrats for the 7th District for about a year, and I'm sure there's going to be much more we're going to hear about you. So
I
I'm
think
looking
after
for
they
that
watch the
too.
show tonight, they might throw me out. But
So you've been watching Election Night Live in West Hartford. I'm Pat Kazakoff. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Pat.
And good night. Have a little
And
bit
we're
more
back.
coming. We're back. We're back. We never quite left. We're back, and we're going to be going to Democratic headquarters, where we will be speaking to. We'll be speaking to our West Hartford Community Interactive reporter, and she'll be talking to some of the folks there. Let's take a look.
Chris Prentice. There you go.
that was neat. They appeared and disappeared.
It's interesting about that Riddick.
Mr. Syed, how are you this evening, sir?
Hi, how are you? I'm okay. I'm very much enjoying, and I'm hoping the best for the West Hartford.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So I imagine you voted today?
Definitely, me and my family, everybody.
Everybody raised their voice and came out to show support and participated in the system. How are you feeling about the future of Connecticut?
I'm very, very much hopeful about the future of Connecticut, especially under the governorship of Ned Lamont and Susan Walcevich. I know Susan for a long time, and they're doing very excellent job. And I think majority of the people of Connecticut are very happy. And I'm a West Hartford resident, and the education system and the mayor and everybody doing very nice job. And I hope and pray they can they will put more and more attention on the education and municipal work and the law enforcement. It is I'm enjoying, my family enjoying, I think everybody enjoying is state of Connecticut and West Hartford.
Excellent. Actually, thank you for coming out. We're very excited tonight. Like you said, we're looking for great leadership to provide for our education, to provide for our families, to provide for a bright future in Connecticut, and it looks like we're going to get that. We're very excited to see what the results are on the polls. We've got our eyes on the big board looking at who's winning in different districts, who's winning in different seats. Let's stay with WHCI for the latest tonight. Stay with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You took a look at anything that you want to add to that discussion?
No, I think he had his finger on the pulse.
Okay.
Yeah, he seemed very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah,
So
absolutely.
It will be interesting
Yep.
to see how things shake out as the numbers roll in.
Yeah. So let's take a look now at what's going on at Republican headquarters.
I'm good? Good evening, I'm Graham. I'm here at Brio and West Farms Mall. I'm here with Dr. Larry Laser on election night. Now, he's running for Connecticut's first U.S. congressional district. Now, Dr. Laser, you're in the first district. That goes all the way up to Colebrook and all the way back down through Hartford. What's it like when you've been traveling around your different districts today?
It's been exciting. We had about 22 stops. People are enthusiastic. So we got to bond with people. We got to talk to voters. But it's been very positive. We've enjoyed it.
That's good. Now, obviously, Colebrook and Hartford are two very different towns. Do you see any commonality with the issues, or are you seeing different issues among different voters in these towns as you travel?
Yeah, I think there's a variance of importance of issues. I just heard we won Colebrook, which is great, that we're winning Bristol. West Hartford we're behind. Newington we're kind of close. But Hartford, we've made a big push. I think Hartford needs a lot of help economically, the schools, healthcare. So we have some community leaders that are working with us, and we're excited about Hartford. We're excited about doing some new things. But overall, it's been a positive day so far.
Good. As you've been talking to people making the rounds, what is the big issue or a couple big issues that people are talking about with you that are most concerning to them?
Number one is the economy. People concerned about inflation when they go to the grocery store, the cost of their eggs and their milk, go to the gas station, the cost, and concerns with the winter with utilities going up. They also have a concern with confidence in the government right now. Actually, we have an all-time low confidence in government, and so people want change. They want to have belief that the government's doing things common sense in a good way. So we're excited about bringing that.
And one thing we'll say is we've all seen the record number of turnouts that are happening for voters right now. There's a lot of first-time adult voters, and a lot of them are coming out for the very issues you're talking about. For me, I'll tell you personally, big issue for me is parental rights and how the Democratic Party is not respecting parental rights. Now, do you think that at least the Democratic Party as a whole will pay attention to how people are voting, and that way, going forward, where they've won, they can maybe try to change their policies? Do you think this will have an effect on that?
Yeah, I think, you'll see the Democratic Party backpedal a little bit. When I look at crime, I think there's a backpedaling on the taking away police immunity. A lot of police are saying, what do you want us to do? You're tying our hands. We can't search cars. We can't chase criminals. So there's a backpedaling on that. There's also a backpedaling on the amount of spending from the Democratic Party. People are concerned that excessive spending, when even Democratic economists are saying you're causing inflation by dumping too much money in, there's a backpedaling on that. So yeah, I think voters do their job. They look at what's going on and they'll vote based on what they see.
Now, I want to ask you something about Dick Blumenthal real quick. He's somebody who has always kind of told himself as being a supporter of police, yet he's kind of locked arms with his party at the time when they were all shouting, defund the police. And then he comes back today during election year saying, I'm a big supporter of police. I'm going to make sure lots of funding goes towards police. What's your take on that? Is it genuine? Is it not? Is he just peddling to party politics?
Yeah, I think, we all saw George Floyd get murdered, and we believe that there needs to be oversight and de-escalation, but clearly we went too far. The police, 95% of them are great. They have a really tough job. And I think we over-exaggerated the problem in terms of what we need to do. When I went around Hartford, people want more police because the greatest deterrent to crime is the presence of police. We need to support our police. We need to bring that back into a trust situation. And yeah, I think voters want that very much.
Excellent. Yep. You certainly have my vote. You got everyone's vote here. Wishing you the best of luck as we get the results tonight, and you'll be hearing back from us soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
That was Larry Laser, agreed upon as good candidate. But now we have something special. We're going to go back to Democratic headquarters. We're going to be talking to Sherry Cantor, Mayor Sherry Cantor. Let's take a look.
Get after tonight.
So I think Connecticut came out and voted really strongly. I was at a number of our polling areas, and the turnout was great. It was just constant people coming and voting, and there was great enthusiasm, I think. So, and I think that happened throughout Connecticut. I think most people are very, very happy with the way our state is run, and who and I do believe that the Democratic team will win. But I'm sure that there are going to be some towns that are going to have a little different opinion of things. But I know our West Hartford community came out really, really strong. I'm pretty confident for the Democratic team in Connecticut.
Excellent, excellent. And I know, like she said, there's going to be other towns, but you know what? It takes all kinds of folks to make the world spin. We need everybody, and I'm glad you saw such a great turnout. When I went to go vote, I know I saw a lot of people there. I saw a lot of hard workers counting the polls, the ballots, and everything. We're doing a great job, Connecticut. Keep showing up. Thank you, Mayor Cantor. Thank you for all you do. Get back to the party.
Cantor, our mayor, and she seemed to be very positive. I had the same impression when I went to the polls, and so did you, that it was like very, very upbeat and people wanted to be there, and it's all part of the civic duty and all part of the enthusiasm of being part of West Hartford.
Yes.
So we're going to end the evening. To my two guests, we're all going to end.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. And what we're going to do is you stay tuned, because we're going to go back and forth to Democratic and Republican headquarters and to see what people are thinking and what they're doing, and just what the issues are and what the predictions are. And anything else you want to say second time we sign off?
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure, John, Pat. Thank you.
John?
Likewise. It was great to be on air with you, and thank you, Pat, so much for inviting us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, West Hartford.
Alexandria, a voter. Alexandria, tell me what was the big issue that made you vote this evening?
I was voting for Anastasia Yap, The Department of Children and Families has been taking children from their families since, God, can't even give you a date, since they started. Anastasia Yop was the only one willing to take a stand against them, stopping the termination of parental rights for parents that have not actually abused their children. DCF is taking advantage of their power.
Now, do you see that there's an abuse of power? Obviously, you said they're taking advantage of the power. Is this a widespread issue? Is this something that you have seen, or is this something that not enough parents know about? Could you elaborate?
Okay, well, first off, I like to say I grew up in foster care in Connecticut. I grew up a foster child. Some parents should not have custody of their kids. It's just not okay. Some parents do deserve to be parents. DCF will take, without just cause, without physical abuse, without physical harm, they will take that child and just on hearsay, terminate your parental rights. Never go again to see that child. That is not fair. That's not right. It should never have to be that way. Parental bonds is the only thing that Anastasia believed in, and it's the only thing that anyone actually really put their mind and heart and soul into running for.
You know, as a Republican myself, the big issue that I was voting on this year was parental rights. Connecticut Law 19A-14C that was passed years ago, we found has been used to have private meetings between a school psychologist and a child to diagnose them and treat them for mental illness without parental consent. And so, you know, what you're telling me about DCF kind of falls in line with that parental rights are kind of being under attack. Do you think the Democratic Party is going after parental rights on a large scale too, or is this just kind of a Connecticut thing? What do you think?
No, it's a larger scale. It's cross country. We're missing so many foster children out of the system. You could document Texas. There's hundreds and hundreds missing across the country. Nobody cares because it's just a paycheck. But the parents do have to. They do care. We do care. We care, but nobody's willing to stand up. And it's all about a profit. It's not about the best interest of the child. It never has been. The issue is that it goes on the news for 24 to 48 hours and then it's gone. Nobody cares anymore. But nobody wants to take and hold DCF accountable for what they've done. What about the $399,000 they're missing in that audit that came out? That's Connecticut. We're talking about Connecticut. What about all the abuse claims that they're not investigating? The hotline, the care line, why are they all on the same contract? Why are they the same people? It's outrageous. Parents do not know what's going on because they hide it. Connecticut only allows you to know what they want you to know.
Now, you mentioned that DCF is abusing its rights and taking custody from parents. Now, could you give me an example of something where physical abuse was not found, where maybe you mentioned that somebody could just make a call, and that, can you give me an example of what that would look like?
Okay, so I could call DCF and tell them, I saw your son running down the street with a black eye. Liably, he could have been playing on the playground and actually fell, bumped his eye, got a little mark, but I already called, so they're already snooping around. Once they snoop around, they use their administrative power to abuse it, to take your rights, to give them their rights so they can get a paycheck.
And we say snoop around, how long do they snoop around for? Is this a 48-hour investigation?
It is not. The investigation can last 6 months to years, and it just mentally weighs on the child. If you think that DCF is not a problem, then you may be the problem yourself, because these kids are suffering more and more being in the hands of DCF and wanting to be home with their parents. Kids are understanding these days. They're more mature. They know more than they used to. I can have a 4-year-old sit here and tell you she's in a foster home.
Alexandria, I appreciate you bringing this issue to my attention. I think I encourage anyone who's watching to please look up the information that she's talking about, do your own research, and you're starting a good conversation that needs to be had, because this is the first time that I've heard in-depth information about DCF.
Did you know that they all have the same person that they report to?
Who's that?
DCF. DCF is DCFing DCF. They're policing each other. So you have the ombudsman, you have DCF. The ombudsman is who you go to when you can't reach anyone after the hotline. The hotline, the ombudsman, they all are contracted together. They are DCF. They're not an outside agency working as a third party. DCF is policing themselves. That's why nothing's being done in the state of Connecticut. And the Democrats do not care.
So you're saying there's no independent oversight of DCF?
There is no independent oversight. The only oversight is DCF. And why would you want to complain to DCF about DCF? It's going to get absolutely nowhere. And the Democrats do not care.
Well, that's good to know, and these are certainly things everybody should be thinking about, especially if you're a parent. So, Alexandria, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Again, we'll be reporting some more later here at Brio in West Hartford. Thank you.
Tammy Exum. She is running for a 19th district seat, yes? In Hartford. Okay, here she is. We just wanted to get a quick couple of words with you, Miss Exum. How do you feel about the energy in the room tonight? How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel a lot of optimism tonight. I think that we're going to be in really good shape here in the West Hartford community and in the state. I think we're going to be in wonderful shape just all throughout. And we had activity and a lot of momentum today. It was busy all day at our polls, and I think it bodes well for the Democrats.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so there's great energy going into this election. How do you feel about the future, the immediate future of Connecticut? After this election, when the dust is settled, what do you think? What are we looking at? How do you feel about it?
Well, provided that what I say and hope and predict is going to happen takes place, I feel really good about leadership. I was heartened today when I had an opportunity when I was poll standing, and I spoke to a Republican gentleman who said that, he really was not voting for any Democrats except for Ned Lamont, that he felt, and then he said he would vote for myself when we finished the conversation. But he did say that he felt he was really pleased with the way that our response was to the pandemic, and understanding their issues with the economy, but feeling confident with the leadership. And I think that the leadership that will be elected and brought into office, it will be great for early voting. We're looking good around women's reproductive rights. We're looking good for so many areas, and this bodes well for our future. So I feel very optimistic. I know there are tough times ahead, but we have great leadership in place, and I think that we'll be riding this out over time. I do.
Awesome, awesome. It's great to hear from you. Straight from Tammy Exum herself, she's letting you know she's confident in the future of Connecticut. We should be too, right? Excellent. Thank you very much for stepping in with us here. Have a great evening. Gilchrist, State Representative for the 6th District?
18th.
I apologize. Jillian Gilchrist, 18th District Representative. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling really good. Yeah.
How do you feel about the energy in the room? I see a lot of people in here and there's a lot of happy faces. How do you feel?
Yeah, there's great energy in the room. It was a wonderful election day. The turnout was tremendous, and it was just a steady stream all day long of voters.
Okay. Awesome. That's great to hear, right? And in a time like this, we need to get out to vote, and it looks like we have. How do you feel about the future of West Hartford residents? After today, once the dust has settled, all the polls are closed, all of the leaders and winners have been established, what do you think? How do you feel? What's your outlook?
So often West Hartford is called a bubble. Today, seeing that bubble in action, there's just this energy to Election Day where people feel like they're taking part in something bigger than themselves. And they bring their children, and the turnout. So I feel very optimistic for the community of West Hartford. We care about one another, we care about our state, we care about our country, and that's what today illustrated to me. And people trust in the leaders that they elect to do the job they elect them for, and recognize that vote matters. And so if we're not doing the job they've elected us to do, they'll come back next time around and not elect us. Yeah.
Awesome. So there you have it. A lot of energy, a lot of positive energy, a bright outlook for the future of West Hartford and Connecticut at large. Thank you, Miss Gilchrist. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hartford delegation. I believe I'm the first Latino elected to statewide office in the town of West Hartford, and it happened kind of by accident because of the 2022 census. Our districts came into West Hartford. Bobby from Bloomfield and me from Hartford, and here we are. But
We're happy to be part of the West Hartford delegation. I'm still happy to be part of the Hartford delegation. Bobby's happy to be part of Bloomfield and of West Hartford. So we're all one happy family.
That's awesome. You guys are doing a little bit of everything. You're spreading out. You're bringing in more communities under your jurisdiction, yeah? So I understand, Mr. Gibson, this is your first year as West Hartford, representing any part of West Hartford. What can West Hartford residents expect?
Well, once again, I have to echo the sentiments of my friend here, State Representative Ed Vargas. We are part of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. I am actually the vice chair. And so one of the things we want to do is bring more diversity to this awesome town. West Hartford is already diverse, but we feel as though as state legislators, we can bring another element of diversity. So we're just so happy to be here. We're happy to be part of the WEHA delegation. Tonight is a great night for Democrats, and we're just ready to start. We're working now, but after tonight, we're not going to rest. We're going to continue working.
There you have it. There you have it. Tonight is only the beginning of the work, right? We're just getting to it. We got two great delegates here joining the WEHA team. Thank you both. Thank you both for showing up. And thank you, voters. Stay with us.
Of the 20th district, not only West Hartford, but now Newington, and that was made possible because every single one of you. So as John said, please give a rousing round of applause for yourself. And as John said, as someone like many of you know, we've been at this for 10 months and knocking doors since May and talking to every single voter out there. We've known that this is about making sure that voters know that Democrats are the ones who are fighting for them, Democrats are the ones who've delivered for them, and Democrats are the ones who are going to keep facing the challenges at hand to go back to the legislature and make sure that we're making Connecticut more affordable, make sure that we're making Connecticut a place of strong human rights, making sure that we're a Connecticut that protects our climate. We're going to do all of those things. Am I right? We're going to do And again, I think personally, as someone who ran for the first time during COVID, this is a whole other new world, getting to actually run and have so many of you by my side. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for every door you knocked, for every call you made, for every text you sent, for every sign you put up. And I could not do this without several very important people in my life. One, can we give a round of applause for the best campaign manager candidate could ever have, Jennifer Smith. I do want to give a shout out to our field manager. She had to head back to Northeastern, but Natalie De La Cruz has been one of West Hartford's shining stars, and she was a key part of our campaign. And then none other than my cheerleader-in-chief, my husband, Chan. Famous, but let's do what we know is right, is good, is positive and fair. I know for every single West Hartford resident. So I'm so proud to be a Democrat, and I can't wait for what we're going to do next for our community. Let's do it. With my West Hartford colleagues, so.
All right, so that was Kate. So we are all excited for her, and again, thank you everyone for helping out. Now we have some other folks who are state reps and state senators, have some races. So if all those folks want to come up here real quick, we got Tammy,
Bobby Gibson, Derek Schlapp, Jerry Exel, Lillian Gilbert.
Yeah, and I've got to go Bloomfield, so. Hey, Morgan! Yeah! So guys, get the picture. Yeah. Actually, stay up for a second, and then we'll get this.
Okay, we have here on the TV behind us.
All right, one more with you.
Getting her on.
That's great team.
For those of you who don't know, I am State Rep Bobby Gibson, and I want to thank you for welcoming me into the West Hartford community. Thank you so much. You know, it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to serve. And I'm speaking from my standpoint, but let me speak for, give me the opportunity to speak for everyone in this room. Because everyone in this room, you serve. You serve because you support. You serve because you support us. You give us the confidence to go up to the Capitol and fight for the democratic way of life. Because it's not easy. We got those up there who do not want some of the things that we stand for. They don't want us to stand for health care. They don't want us to stand for gun control. They don't want us to stand for education. So by you giving us the power and the enthusiasm to be your voice and to represent you, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank my colleagues for welcoming me in and working together. And we have the energy, the enthusiasm. Kate, I know it's not done yet, but you got this. And we just can't wait to January 1st to start session.
I've got to say, Bobby said it all. We may be new to West Hartford as representatives, part of the West Hartford delegation, but we're not new to the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party stands for. So thank all of you who work today and work every day to push for those values. You mentioned all those issues, healthcare and all the others, and I might include women's rights, which thank you, and for us, the work begins in January, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd love Jillian to go for it next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your support. And although it wasn't maybe like Kate's race, I still, I showed up this morning. I've been saying to people, by 6:45, I was like, okay, like I'm feeling okay. Thank you all so much. What strikes me about today is the energy in West Hartford at the polls. Our town turns out, but we turn out because we all do share our democratic values. There's a belief in this community that we need to do good to each other and for each other. And I just had such joy all day getting to talk with people who feel that same way that I know we all feel. So thank you for your efforts this campaign season. I stand with my colleagues in that our work is just beginning. We are elected to serve you and the people of West Hartford, and so I am so looking forward to another 2 years. So honored. Thank you for the opportunity.
I just want to also say I'm echoing what was said before, but it is so great to see you this evening. And it feels like it has been a really long election cycle for some reason. There's so much happening throughout. But today, I totally agree. There was something really special in the air. And when I would say to people, you know what, thank you so much for coming out today, they said, where else would I be? This is a part of what I'm supposed to do. This is what is important to me. And to see the enthusiasm and to see the whether or not, regardless of what side you were voting for, and I can tell which side most of the people around here were. But I will say, it was clear that people thought it was important to express themselves through their vote. And I also want to thank the Democratic Town Committee. I want to thank Peter Andrews. I have to give him a shout out for just really being there and helping me out. Because you didn't have an opponent. You know that you won. I said, but it's important to connect with the constituents. It's important to hear what's important to other people. I needed to show up because I wanted you to see that I am here for you, that I am representing you, whether or not I am opposed. And I think that's really important. I'm so happy to be a part of this wonderful team. We're allowing some more guys to come in. But welcome, and I'm so excited. I know Kate has been working so hard and so long, and today people were saying to me, I just found out now Kate's not going to be my rep, and I just found out the last 2 weekends, you're going to be my rep now. I love Kate. I said, I love Kate too, but I'm going to do a good job for you. We'll share you. I'm so happy for you, and I'm not jinxing it at all, but we know how this is going to go. But thank you all so much for your support. We're there for you, and we look forward to getting started. I'm already starting to work. I can say that as I get ready for this next session, but I know that we're with that group of all of us are working for you. So anyway, thank you so much.
Big word. A lot of people at home don't even know what that is. For starters, why don't you just, in a nutshell, tell us why comptroller is an important position and why you're running for it?
Absolutely. So the comptroller of Connecticut is the chief financial officer of our state. Every dollar that comes in and every dollar that comes out, the comptroller is responsible for. Payroll, retirement plans, healthcare plans. I've got that expertise. I've got those skills. I've led this at the most senior executive level for Fortune 50 companies, and I'm the only one with the skills to do this job.
Now, why is that important to the average voter? Why would they want to know why someone should run for comptroller?
Well, your governor can only be as good as his chief financial officer. So if I can find inefficiencies and fraud and waste, I can put more money into your pocketbook or into things that we need, like public safety, police officers, healthcare, other things. So it's very important and it does translate into everyday life.
Nice. Do you think Connecticut has a history of overspending or using money they don't have?
Oh my God. We have the size of a government of North Carolina. The same budget, 25 billion, 25 billion. We have 3.5 million people. They have 15. Why is our government so big? Wow. So yes, I do believe we can do better and return more money to business and individuals in our state.
Yeah, money's a big issue for people, especially we're talking about inflation, we're talking about taxes. Now, obviously, this is something that people should pay attention to, especially when they're electing a comptroller. What are some other big issues that could be affected by, let's say, decisions made by the comptroller that affect everyday life?
Well, the most important thing that voters need to know, the comptroller reports to you, the people, not to the governor. So we have levers that we can pull for you. So one thing, for instance, we have to increase public safety. Police officers are retiring in droves. They're not coming back. And we're going to have to pay more. So that's an everyday life. The pension unsustainable liabilities, we have to fix that. We have to get out of being number 50 in financial condition and move up the chain so we can attract companies and jobs. So I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. Now, aside from being comptroller, just as a citizen yourself, what is some of the biggest issues that you see as a voter yourself?
I'm totally concerned about crime. I come from an NYPD crime family, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned the officers don't have the tools and people behind them to back up to keep us safe. That's one of the first and primary things that government has to do. And education. I'm a mom of a 12-year-old, and I love teachers. That's the second occupation of my family. My mom's a teacher. But let parents decide what's appropriate for them at the right age.
Absolutely. I love one of the first thing you mentioned, which was law enforcement, okay? Now we have Dick Blumenthal, which likes to talk about he's a big supporter of police. You know, except his whole party a little over a year ago was talking about defunding the police. And now right before election time he's saying, oh, he wants to spend all this money on police. What do you take on that?
I think it's, well, I can't say what I want.
Say what you want to say, but in PC terms, I guess. Right?
I think it's baloney. He never cared about the police. He never championed them. He never spoke out against what happened to those 2 police officers in Bristol that were gunned down shamelessly, ambushed because of your Democrat rules and laws that made these police officers impotent. Basically, you guys took away their rights to help us stay safe. They can't pursue. They have no indemnity anymore. They are putting their lives on the line. These men and women every day, and we don't have their backs. Guess what? I'll have your back. I believe in what you do. I'm from a law enforcement family. You matter. I care about you. You keep us safe, and that's the number one thing government needs to do. And we have failed.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for your time. Once again, big shout out to all of our law enforcement. God bless you, and thank you for putting your lives on the line every day. The average person does not know the personal toll that it takes on you, so thank you for that. And Mary, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey, good luck on the race, okay?
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
my carpool to all these events, and you tell Earl, I tell Alex, and say, I'll see you later, and Tammy and I are off driving around, so anyway. So I am ready, fired up to serve another 2 years with passion, with intellectual curiosity, with humility, with empathy, and with deep, deep gratitude to all of you, because it takes all of us to do this, and I'm just so grateful. You're not only friends and colleagues, but I feel like we are really in community together. You know, it goes way beyond just Democratic Town Committee or volunteers, but I feel such a deep connection with all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, special thanks to Alex, my wife, who's in the corner over there. Thank you. And Charlie, who's 10 and is learning about politics, and Zoe, who was with me all day today. And Zoe just started the Conard Young Democrats. By the wayside a little bit during the pandemic, and Zoe said, I'm going to get it started again. So not only for the election, but to really work on great policy and engage people at Conard. So it's unbelievable that you did. I'm so proud of you. The Democratic Town Committee leadership, thank you. Thank you, John. Where did John? There he is. He's right in front of me. And Tiffany. Where's Tiffany? Tiffany! Vice chair of the party, not only the treasurer for Susan Weisslitz's campaign, she's also my campaign manager, and she has become such a dear friend through this process. So much of what we're able to accomplish is because of John Tiffany's hard work, and Tiffany, just thank you. I know we're all so grateful for what you do. One of the most important and thankless jobs in any campaign is what? Treasurer! Bob Facey, let's have a bourbon. I want a bourbon with you soon, Bob. Thank you. He doesn't get any thanks, but if he messes up, he goes to prison. I mean, that's basically how the treasurer, right, exactly, how it works. And Peter Andrews as well. I don't know if Peter's still here or not, and I know you already thanked him, but again, Peter deserves a lot of thanks as well. I know a lot of us have probably mixed feelings, you know, about today, right? Especially as we watch what's going on behind me. You know, there's a saying in politics that you either run unopposed or, what's the other? Do you remember? Scared, right? Those are the two ways to run. I was unopposed, but still scared, in part because of, right, this stuff. Of course, what's happening statewide, but also nationally. And I think about our role, specifically all of our roles, and West Hartford, our role in, you know, what happens in this country. It's significant. We only have about 12 states in the entire country that are controlled by Democrats. And that could change after tonight. Connecticut, of course, is one of them. It would not be one of them without you, right? Without us, without West Hartford. We are the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. We share, as Jillian said, we share the same values, and they are at risk across the country, and even here in Connecticut. So as we go forward into the legislative session, we know there's going to be a lot of challenges. They're going to start even just next week when we know the person who shall not be named, he's like Voldemort, right? Yeah. I'm not even supposed to say that name, right? He's going to probably announce he's running for re-election, right? This is a certain person, right? He's going to come back. We're not done with him yet. So my point is, we have a choice to make, especially if we get some mixed results here. We can either get dejected and become cynical and, you know, put our head under the covers, right? And we might do that for a day or two, but ultimately we have a choice to make. And I think we know what we have to do as West Hartford Democrats, right? We have to be the firewall. We have to be, and we are, right? And we're going to protect a woman's right to choose. We're going to protect, right, marriage equality, right? We're going to protect health care. We're going to protect our democracy. It's that big. So I'm grateful to all of you. Thank you. We're one big family, and let's get back to work after the vote.
I want to thank all of you for all your support through all the years. You've been wonderful. I'm honored and humbled to be with this group of winners. I mean, I really am. I'm very, very blessed. Thank you all. I have great support from John and Tiffany. They're just fantastic. I'll thank my wife. I'll thank her all. I won't forget that. My wife Judy, who's at home, who's tremendous support to me. She's taking care of our grandson. So we're blessed there. But you're all wonderful. It's great to be part of this Democratic team. And I'm very, very honored. So thank you all and have a great night.
As your town chair, I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank everyone for the last 10 months for working hard. And I want to thank Tiffany McGinnis, who's the greatest vice chair in the world, literally, in this state. And I want to thank the executive committee and the district chairs for all your hard work in getting the members out. And I want to thank the members of our fine DTC, our Democratic Town Committee of West Hartford. We continue to perform and we continue to be that stopgap, and we're here today, we're here tomorrow. So thank you all so much, and we got some municipals coming up, so let's fire up.
Hartford, we are back again here with Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Kevin Sullivan, former mayor of West Hartford.
Former mayor, former senator, former lieutenant governor, former senate president. I'm a former.
He's done it all. He's done it all, and he's here tonight. Mr. Sullivan, how do you feel tonight? What are your feelings on the energy in the room, on the polling places you visited? What did you see? How do you feel about what you saw?
I'm always proud of West Hartford. I think, the victory tonight for the Democrats is evidence that the values of this community are the values of the Democratic Party. I've been around long enough to remember when there was a responsible Republican Party in town that wasn't a captive of the right wing. It's sad to see what's happened. As a Democrat, I'm happy, but as a citizen, I'd rather it was a little bit more like it used to be. But it's a great victory for the candidates. They deserve a lot of support for the work they did, and it's a good message for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of hard work went in today. A lot of people came out to put the vote out to raise their voices for what they believe in. What do you feel about the future of Connecticut and WEHA in general?
Well, let's just say for the future of Connecticut, I'm confident that Governor Lamont will be returned before the evening is over. He has done a great job again. Somebody who has been a positive force as opposed to a negative force, and that seems to be what the choice is these days. And for West Hartford, we have a great delegation going down to the Capitol. They've done a great job for us already. They will continue to do so. They work very closely with Sherry Cantor. So it's good news for us. Last thing that's good news, I suspect that once again we will be one of the top 5-6 towns in terms of delivering turnout, delivering votes for the Democratic candidates. We were last time, we will be again. West Hartford is a powerhouse.
That's right. You can't beat West Hartford spirit, especially on Election Day. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for checking in with us.
Thank you for covering that.
Hello, Graham again here in West Hartford. I'm here with John Decker. John, you used to run a few years back for U.S. Congress here in Connecticut. Can you please tell us about that?
I did. I actually was on the ballot with, I ran against John Larson in 2012, so that's when Obama and Mitt Romney were on the ballot.
What was a big issue at the time during that race?
You know, I don't think issues have changed a lot. You know, there's still a lot of things about fiscal responsibility, spending, budget, but, you know, more and more today, you know, if I were running today, I'd be talking about crime and inflation and the cost of living and how hard it is for the average person to, like, fill up their tank. You know, high gas prices are probably the most aggressive tax there is, but crime, inflation, spending, the same issues that you really had back then. Unfortunately, I think people just kind of vote party lines. They don't really, you know, it's hard for them to like cross over or change their mind from what they've always voted.
I will. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those issues. I mean, crime is certainly a big issue. I can tell you, Uniform Crime Report, actually, if you look it up, has shown that Connecticut, as far as auto thefts, are actually trending higher than the national average. And Connecticut's had a big spike in recent years with auto theft. Now, Connecticut's been controlled by a Democratic legislature for over 30 years. Do you think they have a plan for addressing crime? Do you think it's more just like skirting the issue and talking about it as if they care? What's your take on the Democrats' solution to crime?
I actually think they failed us. It's kind of worse. I mean, there were a couple of car thefts just last night here in West Hartford. It's getting worse. You know, Democrats, I mean, it's defund the police. That doesn't work. You know, if you have crime, you have to punish crime, unfortunately, and no cashless bails and letting people out and not punishing, you know, people that commit these crimes is only going to lead to more crimes. You know, immigration, you look at that, and you have illegals coming over here. That would be a big issue today. I'm surprised that wasn't a bigger issue. But you know, Connecticut, you know, we're 1,500 miles away plus from the border, so we don't see it as much, but it's a big deal. And then became a big national issue when buses started to show up in New York City. Imagine if they'd been dropped off in Hartford. You know, what would we couldn't afford that, but you know, we're a sanctuary city and we encourage it, so it doesn't make sense to me. But you know, those are the issues I see today. You know, inflation, crime, border, spending, budget, taxes. Connecticut continues to lose population and citizens out of state because I'm a financial planner and I work with individuals like yourself and couples and retirees, and they make decisions. They have to live within their budgets, right? They don't have the power to tax or raise their revenues. So they move out of state. You know, Connecticut is ranked continuously as one of the worst states in the nation to retire in. And it gets harder and harder on citizens like you and I that stay here and try to raise families or work here in Connecticut when people move out of state. Those are lost revenues.
Sure. Now, this is kind of a hypothetical question. Do you think at a certain point, let's assume for a second that the Democrats retain control in Connecticut, is there a breaking point for them where all of a sudden they're going to say, hey, taxes are too high? Now, they always will say that this is something that we need to provide for services. Is there a certain point where they will look at the common middle-class family and say, hey, look, they can't afford much. There's already so much that they have to pay for in inflation. Do you think there's ever actually a breaking point where they'll say this is too much and we need to change our policy?
That almost sounds rhetorical. No, that's the problem. They just keep thinking that they have the power to tax and increase taxes and that the average person doesn't feel it, and they do. And there comes a breaking point, and those breaking points are why people will leave. That's why more people leave the state. And until they realize that, yeah, I think it's going to get tougher and tougher in this state.
I just went to the grocery store the other day. My gallon of milk was almost $8. So yeah, and gasoline is still higher than it was last year. It's gone down recently, but it's still significantly higher. So yeah.
On Inauguration Day, you know, when Biden was inaugurated in January 2021, I paid $2.06 to fill my gallon, per gallon to fill my car. Today it's what, $3.79. Yeah. Don't forget December 1st. You know, there was that ploy to reduce because gas prices were polling so poorly. They had to cut the gas price or reduce the gas tax by 25 cents a gallon. That goes back into effect December 1st. So in just 3-4 weeks, we're going to see our gas prices jump 25 cents overnight. And now that the election's over, we're stopped draining the strategic reserve, watch oil prices start to creep up, not from $80 to $90 a barrel, but $100, $110. And we're going to see $4 plus maybe $4.50, $5 a gallon probably by this fall. We've got problems. Eversource CEO is already saying we may have rolling blackouts. We've got problems with energy problems and natural gas coming into by January. We're going to have some real problems with natural gas prices and just to fill your car.
You know, that's a good issue because most people did not know that. I did not know that until you mentioned that about how the price is about to go up again because of the limit you were just saying. Now, this is something that I keep thinking back when President Trump signed into effect the building of the Keystone Pipeline, which would have brought fresh oil from Canada into the United States. One of Biden's first laws that he put into place was was disintegrating that plan, getting rid of the Keystone Pipeline.
It's an executive order on the first day.
Thank you for correcting me. It's executive order, so it didn't even go through Congress. Do you think that could have benefited us as far as gas prices if we still had a Keystone Pipeline?
I think there's so many things that would have helped the gas prices. So gas prices, like any commodity, are supply and demand. The more supply, the more demand, and the less supply, the higher the price. If you have ample supply, the prices are going to come down, right? It's basic economics. And maybe that's the problem. The Democrats don't know economics 101, right? But it's not just Keystone Pipeline. It's drilling and it's production. And I mean, you think about gas prices and what we could be doing. We could be supplying the world and really breaking Russia in the war in Ukraine. If we wanted to break Russia, we're begging Russia to produce more. We're begging Iran to produce more. We're begging Venezuela to produce more. Only because we don't want to produce it here, and we could produce oil and energy in the United States cheaper and cleaner, greener than the rest of the world, but we're not doing it, and we're shutting it down. So, yeah, the Keystone Pipeline, it was a big mistake. There are other pipelines that were stopped. We're not renewing leases. There are a lot of things that we're doing, but it's a regressive tax on the lowest income individuals, these high gas tax prices.
John, I really appreciate you giving me your thoughts on this. This has certainly been a very interesting election, and I would certainly be happy to see you running again for another position in the future if that ever happens. So you certainly let us know. But thanks again for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you once again, Graham in West Hartford. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for checking in with us.
Thank you for covering us.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. Hartford, we're here. My name is Chris Prentice. Derek Slapp, how are you, sir? How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling great. A big win, not only for me, but my colleagues in the West Hartford legislative delegation, and we're ready to get back to work in January and keep fighting for folks in West Hartford.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just want to ask you, what is your sense of the future for Connecticut? When you head back down to Washington, what are you fighting for? What can the people of Connecticut and West Hartford expect to receive as a service from you?
Yeah, well, first, I'm very fortunate I don't have to go to Washington. I can just stay right here in Hartford and fight for folks and work, with, my colleagues on the opposite side of the aisle as well. And I think, I'm very bullish on Connecticut. I think that we've really turned the corner in terms of budget. We used to kind of lurch from one budget crisis to the next. We have a very solid rainy day fund. We were able to cut taxes this past session, at the same time investing in education, investing in mental health services, and things that people really care about. So there's an opportunity to do more, to make Connecticut more affordable, to make it a fairer economy, and to grow the economy, and that's what I'm going to be focused on the next 2 years.
That's excellent. That's excellent. We got a lot to look forward to. Connecticut is in good hands. You've chosen well with our leadership. You turned out the vote today. Mr. Slapp, Senator Slapp, excuse me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
we
much.
appreciate you.
Of course.
Yes, thank you. Stay tuned.
Graham here in West Hartford. I'm here with Sean Daly, the chairman of the Republican Town Committee in West Hartford. Now, this was easily one of the most watched midterm elections we've had so far. We've had a lot of first-time Republican voters coming out who have not voted for us before. Now, could you explain what the couple of key issues were, why they were coming to the Republican Party?
Sure, absolutely. I think what was very good that we can take away from this is that we were able to get some key messages out. And those key messages were we need to pay attention to crime that's happening in our town. We need to pay attention to parental rights and the importance of parental rights. And certainly that's going to help us as we're on to the municipals. And then, still fiscal responsibility is an important piece. I think, one of the things was, candidly speaking, I think one of the things that was a little disappointing is West Hartford had the opportunity to show diversity, and they didn't. We talk diversity in West Hartford, but when it comes to action, we missed the boat on this. We had a really great opportunity to prove that. Anastasia ran just an unbelievable campaign, and I'm so proud of the work that she did and the work of her team. Couldn't be happier, couldn't be prouder. It's not easy when you have a 3-1 deficit of Democrats to Republicans. We really had hoped that the Democrats wouldn't vote down the line as a partisan group. And we're going to continue to work on creating diversity in West Hartford.
Yeah, one thing I will say from my experience working with Anastasia is that huge support of parental rights, and even when going around talking to your common man about what's going on in schools and what's important to parents is that they feel like their voices are not being heard. They feel like they're speaking up at Board of Education meetings about curriculum content that's inappropriate, that they find inappropriate for their kids, and they're being stonewalled by the schools, saying that they can't opt their kids out of it. These are big, important issues that I'm glad the Republican Party is taking on. And aside from parental rights issue, you mentioned crime. Crime, again, the auto theft is actually, we're trending higher than the national average right now. Connecticut is having a major spike in auto thefts. I can think of, just people in my own neighborhood whose cars were never broken into and they actually had their cars stolen. And Democrats are suddenly. I can think of a key couple of them. We have Ned Lamont and we have Richard Blumenthal that just recently put out advertisements about how they're spending millions on law enforcement when just their own party a year ago was talking about defunding the police with no opposition from them. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's pretty amazing, right? If they did so well for the police departments, why are they all endorsing Bob Stefanowski for governor, right?
That's a big sign.
I think, the biggest thing here is we've got a lot of momentum building for the municipals. And so I think, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Correct.
And we knew that. When I took over as chairman of the West Hartford Republican Town Committee a little over a year and a half ago, we had a 5-year strategy.
Yeah.
Part of that strategy is, first of all, to remove the toxicity that is in this town against Republican conservative thought. And I think we've started to do that. We've started to challenge some of the media sources that are in this town and starting to make sure that stories are unbiased and that misinformation doesn't happen in this town. So that's.
I think gender diversity, but there's also diversity of thought, diversity of policy. There's diversity of how we handle situations. There's diversity of parenthood. We have so many different types of parents from different cultures and religions in town that actually cross party lines. When we're talking about whether it's Middle Eastern, Asian, African, any race you can think of, a lot of people have very similar parenting styles and philosophies on parenting, and yet they're met with silence when it comes to what's being taught in school. They don't get to opt out. They don't get to have a say with whether or not certain content is appropriate, like the gender identity curriculum. Can you speak to how, even though there is a diversity in parenting, it doesn't seem to be respected by the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues, and we'll be talking about in the municipals, is when you have a town council, right, that feels they have to have police presence because they don't trust parents in the town. I think that's an issue. And I think, again, shows a lack of diversity of our town council, and the fear-mongering sometimes that they create. So, we're going to continue to fight against that. We're going to continue to provide ideas, and we're going to continue to work across the aisle and continue to pressure the majority party that's in this town from being a one-rule party, because we know how much it's hurt our town.
Absolutely. Sean, I appreciate everything you do. You're one of the hardest working guys I've met, and I got to tell you, win or lose, this was a tough campaign, and you've been working overtime, so I hope that tonight you're able to get some rest. We certainly have a lot of work to do tomorrow, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Graham. Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it. Yep.